Hey everyone, I hope you are having a wonderful day so far. I am just dropping this special little clip into all the episodes. So, no matter what episode you're listening to, this is actually pretty current as of July 2024. I wanted to come on here and just say a big thank you to Earworthy because the Life Shift podcast was just named the best overall podcast of the year in the first Earworthy Independent Podcast Awards. And you've probably seen some articles written about the Life Shift podcast before, written by Earworthy. And now he is launching from his online publication, he is launching these yearly winners of independent podcast awards. And these are specifically for indie podcasters. We are those that wear all the hats. We create the show. Some people write the show. We're producers, sound engineers. We troubleshoot all the tech. We do any kind of research if we need to. We host the shows. We distribute the shows. We do all the things that relate to our shows because we love it. And it's so nice to see my name in a list with some other amazing podcasts like Multispective, which won Best Life Lessons Podcast. Salad with a Side of Fries won Best Health Podcast. Bippity Boppity Business won Best Business Advice Podcast. And there are so many more. And so I just want to come on here and say thank you to Earworthy for not only doing these awards every year and just honoring some of us indie podcasters that sometimes feel like we're just shouting into the void, but we're not. We're just doing what brings us joy, and hopefully through that work it brings other people joy. In my case, for the Life Shift, I hope that each episode finds the ears that needed to hear it the most so that they feel a little less alone in their circumstance. But also, Earworthy writes all these amazing publications pretty much weekly, every week, every weekday, I should say, where he writes on Blogger, Medium, Substack, Tumblr, Vocal, Many Stories, and for other places. And he really just highlights the independent podcasters. So thank you, Frank, for everything you do with Earworthy and for recognizing all of us in the first Earworthy Independent Podcast Awards. If you'd like to read more, please head to medium.com/EAR hyphen WORTHY. Thanks again and enjoy this episode. I'm Matt Gilhooly, and this is The Life Shift, candid conversations about the pivotal moments that change lives forever. Hello, my friends. I am here with a first for the Life Shift podcast, and I'm super excited about it. I am here with Kelly Anderson, and she is my first guest that I don't personally know in my life. So thank you for being here, Kelly.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Matt. I'm so looking forward to this conversation today.
I'm honored because we connected on LinkedIn. We found kind of this networking type group or situation. I'm not quite sure exactly what it is, but it allows us to connect with people that have similar interests or are just looking to know more people, because I guess that's what LinkedIn's all about. And so we're just fortunate to have our paths cross, and maybe they were supposed to.
I'm a big believer in that, like divine timing for everything. And I truly believe there's no coincidences, especially in the people that we meet. So it was destined to be that day.
I'm super excited about this conversation because I really don't know anything about your story, right? I know a little bit about kind of where you are now and what you're doing, but everyone else that I've been talking to over the last couple months, I have inklings. I've Facebook friends with them. I've grown up with them, whatever it may be. And so this one's going to be really cool and allow me to also ask the questions that hopefully the listeners would have as well. So to get started, why don't we have you tell us a little bit about kind of what life was like before that moment that changed everything for you? Because I think it's helpful to kind of set the scene. So maybe you can give us a little bit about you and your life leading up to that moment.
Yeah. Probably the best place to start is just to put a little color on kind of who I was in my early 20s, which stemmed into my 30s and mid 30s until that shift. So after graduating college, I fell into a career that is typically a career that most people do not go to school for, which is recruiting. It's very much one of those careers. It's like, well, I'm good at these skills, so I'm going to go ahead and become a recruiter now. And little did I know that that was going to become my career for 15 years. So I spent, my 20s and early 30s, kind of, as I say, climbing the corporate ladder, making job changes, working for these great reputable consulting firms. And I was good at it.
All the things that we were trained to do as people of our generation, that those are the required things. You graduate college, then you get a good job, then you get promoted. You were doing it all.
Doing all the shoulds, being raised in a relatively like traditionally conservative family. It was, go to college, get your degree, get a job, meet somebody, and that's your life, right? Like that's the
requirements.
Formulaic. Yeah, it's very formulaic. And I was on board for that for a while because like life was good. There was nothing that I could really point to that was out of sorts necessarily, other than, maybe your average up and downs. And, I had met my now ex-husband in my early 20s, actually at that job, the first one out of college as a recruiter. And we had gotten together and down the line ended up getting married in parallel path of my career growing as well as this relationship with him growing. And, it kind of got to a point, and I know we'll talk about the shift soon, but it kind of got to a point where probably in my mid 30s, around kind of the 2018 era, is when things just started to feel off. And the question that kept coming up to me from, I don't even know where, I know where now, but at the time I didn't know where the question was coming from, was just, is this it? Is this really all there is to it? And it was this big gaping hole that just felt like something was missing. And I had no idea what it was. So yeah, like it was on paper, everything that you would want in life.
Right. Everyone from the outside was looking, oh, she's got it good.
Right.
Yeah, I think, you say that. And again, we're in a similar generation. I'm like 41. And so I'm guessing from your numbers that you just gave us that you're close enough. Right. And so I think part of our upbringing, we were like pre-internet, right? And so there were a lot of like standards of things that we had to do, like we just talked about. And then we got social media, which was like I was probably in my 20s when social media really started. We started to see what other people have, and whether that was performative or not, we kind of started comparing. And there was a lot more of that. And I think I have a very similar situation, and probably even still, of, is this it? Like, is this what, like, I do this until I don't do it anymore and I'm dead? Like, is this how life goes? So I can completely relate to the feeling of, is there anything else that I can add to this that would kind of bring me joy or kind of expand my worldview of what I'm doing? Were you feeling that way?
Yeah. And at the time, it really felt like I was grasping for something externally to fill that void of whatever the thing was that was missing. And so it was, okay, what's the next trip that I can book? What's the next job that I can move into? What's the next big fun activity that I can plan? There was just a world of things, and I just was grasping, and it would provide like a temporary Band-Aid,
right,
of happiness or perceived happiness. But it was almost like that whisper that had been telling me, you're meant for more and there's something missing. It was like slowly starting to become louder. And I remember the turning point. There were several turning points, but I remember the turning point of when I felt like something was going to have to happen to change. And that was in the fall of 2018. I was visiting my sister, who was living in Seattle at the time. And I remember having a conversation with her and just all of a sudden just breaking down, like sobbing emotionally, and telling her, like, I just don't know what my purpose in life is. Like, it's got to be something different than what I'm doing.
Right.
I liked my career and I liked my life, but it didn't feel full and it didn't feel as impactful as I somehow deep down knew that it could be.
Right. What was it about that moment talking to your sister that was it just like I can finally tell somebody I don't know the answers, but I can at least say it out loud?
Yeah, I think it had come from this place of like, I had noticed a pattern with myself that I was getting sick of. And that pattern was wake up, go to work, nervous system out of control all day long because there's a million different things flying at me all day. Come home, email doesn't stop, feel like I have to be on, feel like I have to respond, either work out and go to the gym or like have a couple drinks, numb out, watch Netflix, go to bed, wake up and do it all over again. And after like so many months and probably even years of that pattern, it just started feeling like this can't be it. Like we talked about earlier, like this can't be the end of like what I'm going to be doing for the rest of my life. And so I think it was just bubbling up in me emotionally
Yeah.
to the point that it just spilled out that weekend when I was visiting her.
Yeah, and it's so interesting because the way you described your day in, day out was very full, right? But a couple minutes ago you said you were always searching for more to fill that already full schedule. So it was clear that the universe was speaking to you at that time, and your sister was just there to be the one to listen to it. Is that really, did that set anything in motion, or was it more, okay, I got it out, but I'm still kind of stuck?
It was, I got it out, but I'm still stuck. And over the course of the next several months after that, I started noticing changes in myself. I took a sabbatical from my job at the time and vowed to, find myself during that sabbatical. And in the midst of that process of taking a sabbatical, I ended up getting a job offer for another consulting firm. And so I thought that would be my ticket out, a new job, new team, that'll change things most definitely, right?
Of course.
And at the time, like simultaneously as the sabbatical and the new job offer were coming in, my marriage was crumbling as well. And that shift, that moment, happened the day after my birthday in 2019. So this is about, 6, 7 months after the conversation with my sister in Seattle about finding purpose. And that day after my birthday, 2019, was, when my ex and I decided like we're going to separate. And, that ultimately led to us deciding to get divorced. And everything changed after that point. Like that was the shift. But if I can reevaluate it now, I can see what led to
Right.
that breaking point. What I didn't know at the time is what that would actually set into motion beyond just the end of a 13-year relationship. It was the beginning of me burning pretty much everything to the ground and starting over in a lot of areas of life.
Did you feel that break gave you the freedom to do that? Do you think the previous version of you would have ever considered burning what was required, quote unquote, required of you as an individual in this world, to burn everything and start fresh?
No, it was one of those lessons that after a while I learned that if you don't make a move, if you don't make a decision for yourself, the universe is going to make it for you. And it was the right thing when that happened. I know that fully, wholeheartedly. I also can look back at my old self and see how I was so paralyzed and stuck and why I didn't necessarily like take empowered action to initiate, the end of that relationship. So that was a big lesson that I walked away with.
Which part of that gives you or gave you the freedom to feel like you could burn everything down? Was it like signing the divorce papers, or was it quitting your job? Was there quitting? I mean, what part? Because I think it's hard to think like, is there that moment that you're just like, screw it, I am starting fresh. Like, I've done it before. I've quit a job and been like, okay, now what? But yeah, was there like, do you think there was one piece that gave you that life permission to burn it?
Eventually, yes. It didn't come right away. So that first 6 to 12 months after we decided to go our separate ways was obviously painful. You know, anyone
Right.
who's listening that has been through this understands the pain. But I wasn't quite ready to face myself yet. So I was avoiding the healing. I was avoiding the
You were
growth.
grieving.
I was grieving and I was avoiding the growth that was there for me. I I'm a pretty independent person and I didn't want to be with myself for more than 10 minutes at a time. I mean, I had to be busy, busy, busy to distract myself from what was going on in here.
Mm-hmm. Trauma.
And trauma. Yeah.
And that's okay. I think that's important for people to listening. You don't have to fix it all right away. You have to process it in the way that your own self, capital S here, is going to go through that process. I mean, for me, I believe you listened to my story. It took me 20 years to grieve like my first trauma in my life. And so I don't recommend that, by the way. 20 years is a little bit long, but yeah, like, I mean, avoiding that, I think anyone listening will understand that sometimes you're just not ready.
It's so heavy. It's so heavy. Anyone who's been through any kind of a grieving process, it it's almost impossible to process it right away, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
us as humans are not designed to process that quickly. So it really wasn't until we were forced into world isolation through the
Mm,
pandemic that I really started going through that process. And it was again like another message from the universe of like, hey, look, like you've been distracting yourself for the last 9 months. We're going to isolate you at home. No network, no community, no gym, no relationship. You get to heal now.
yeah.
Like you get to do the work and it's going to be uncomfortable and it's going to be lonely and it's going to be painful, but this is for you. And it only took me a couple months into the pandemic to realize, like I see why this is happening for me right now.
Yeah. Because before you just said that you didn't want to be with yourself alone for 10 minutes. And then they're like, guess what? It's only going to be 2 weeks though, right? And then 2 more weeks. And here we are, 2022.
Right. 2 weeks to heal the heart.
For the first couple months, I'm sure, was that really hard because you were still in that avoidance kind of period? What did that look like for you?
Totally. Totally. It was really painful because the way that I was distracting myself through that kind of first 9 months of being on my own was, you know, getting to go into work into the office every day. And that took a good, 10 to 12 hours out of my day. Going to the gym, well, that was taken away. Can't go there either. I had thankfully like a couple of really, really beautiful friends in the area that took me under their wing. So I did have a support system during that time. But yeah, it was really challenging those first couple of months. And then there was just a tiny like glimmer of hope
Yeah.
where, I had hired a spiritual mentor. I had started looking into women's communities that, were filled with other women going through big things, went through therapy. So slowly but surely, I started like reclaiming my power and really starting to unwind what had been happening for me the last year to 2 years. And so that was really a powerful time. Like it didn't feel like it at the time, but looking back now, I'm like, wow, I'm so grateful for 2020.
Yeah. And you're not alone. I think a lot of people, people are calling it like the Great Reset, or I think you call it the Great Awakening. It's just So many of us really needed that moment to reevaluate what was important and why we're doing what we're doing. And does that serve us? Does that serve the universe? So kudos to you for stepping into that, though. I mean, it's hard to determine that, okay, I'm done with this. Like, I'm done with the blockage. I'm taking that first step. But that led you into what you're doing now, which I think is super cool. But tell us a little bit, was that the burning period or was the burning period before?
This was all kind of a burning period. I would say,
What were you shedding?
yeah, ooh, old identities, old beliefs, old ways of being. I had spent my entire life identifying with something external from me. Growing up and in college, it was identifying with being an athlete. So I played basketball in college, and that was a big piece of who I was. Shifting out of college, I became a recruiter. So that was a big piece of who I was. And I was married, so I was a wife. And during that healing process in 2020, it really called on me to like shed that old belief system that I had to identify with these external titles and roles and really start discovering like who I am at my core. And so this was, in the spiritual world, like we call it a dark night of the soul. And so it felt like shedding. And I was awakening at the same time. And so fast forward like through that process, I distinctly remember the first Monday of January 2021 logging into my laptop of my corporate job
Mm-hmm.
and saying to myself, this is the year I leap. I had gone through much of the healing process from the divorce. I had become very comfortable being on my own and being comfortable with who I was as a person in this sort of next phase of life. That kind of the next big thing that came up for review was my career, because that's where I had originally, going way back to 2018 during that breakdown, that was where I had originally been feeling disconnected from a greater purpose. And so it was like all these things had to happen in order for me to build the confidence and like ability to take a leap, like leaving my job. 3 years ago, I never would have dreamt doing something like that. I need stability. I need, security. I need benefits. I need a salary. Like, what am I going to do with my life? Like, those were all the things that I had to dissolve. And so that Monday in January, like I said, that was the I'm going to leap this year moment. And so I started taking aligned action, and it looked like hiring a life coach for myself. It looked like booking a retreat for the spring down in Sedona. It looked like exploring, at a deeper level, my personal values, what my purpose is, what my gifts are. And so that really set into motion what the next 5 months would look like before I officially handed in my resignation to corporate America in May of last year.
Wow.
And so that was probably the biggest risk I've ever taken in my life. And I said at the beginning of the episode, I was raised in a pretty traditionally conservative family. And so risk taking was not part of my vocabulary growing up. So this was big. And
how did your people around you, did they support that? Did they see you in this new light and they were supportive, or were they like, you're crazy, what are you doing?
I'm sure some people felt it was crazy, but no, like my family and close friends were really supportive.
Because they probably saw you growing and they saw each phase of you. And before you go on, I think it was interesting that the trigger of your life shift was this, what am I doing with myself career-wise, right? And then you were forced, like, it was like, just kidding, we're going this direction because emotionally we're going to pull the rug out from under you as far as your relationship or your long-term relationship goes. And then it was almost like you had to do that first, like you just said, in order to get to the place where you would actually leave your job.
Right. It's interesting. Yeah. Like, it's like that move, I had to go through that 100% by myself. And that's not to say I didn't have support through the like healing and growth process, but it was like so many things had to be left behind.
Mm-hmm.
in order for this purpose to be discovered and activated. And what's interesting, what came to me when you asked, did I have good support? The answer is yes. And as I've gotten deeper into my coaching business and further away from the corporate world, I have shed a lot of friendships as well in the process. And that has been painful and lonely at times. But I also know that that's just yet another thing that is happening for me.
It's your external piece. You're shedding those external pieces of people qualifying you as a quality friend, whether or not you are or they are, right? You now understand who you are, and you don't need 1,000 friends. You need these friends that actually serve the right purpose in your life. I get it. It's weird,
Yeah.
because I feel again, I go back to especially my upbringing. It was always like, how many friends do you have? It's always the quantity of things, whether that's salary, whether that's friendships, whether that's how big your house is, whether it's how many awards you got or how many A's you got. It always felt very much like the quantity. And for me, I think coming into my own, partly in the pandemic as well, truly understanding like, what do I need, and letting go. And so by shedding those friendships, I don't think you're alone in that. And I think it's big of you. It shows a lot of growth too.
Yeah. And it doesn't mean that it's easy, right? Because
No.
I feel like I've been on this constant like sailboat of like change where there hasn't been this like lull period in the last 3 years at all. And that's okay. I'm learning to embrace it and just roll with it even during the uncomfortable times, which, earlier this year it was like letting go of friendships. and
Mm-hmm.
and it's okay, because my belief is, through the work that I've done on myself, is that as you shed and let go of relationships, friendships, jobs, old ways of being, like, you are energetically creating more capacity for new things to come in that are more aligned with who you are and who you're becoming. And so, in return, I have met some incredible women, both virtually and in person, that I wouldn't say are necessarily on the same trajectory as me, but are very like-minded in that they want to go deep in conversations. They don't do surface level. So we can really like connect and click in that regard. And so that is what I'm so thankful for, is, the new people that I get to call in now.
Right. You just mentioned that you're doing coaching now. So maybe you can kind of tell us a little bit of how this new discovery of yourself brought on the ability to do. I'm not going to give away what your coaching is, but you can do that.
Yes. So I opened my life coaching business last fall in November. So I am working with growth oriented individuals, men and women, who are in a place of just feeling stuck, and they feel like they're settling, and they're ready to shift out of that stuckness into more purpose and into more fulfillment. And so my role is to essentially show them their thoughts and show them their mind as to what has kept them stuck in old belief patterns, so that they can start really breaking those down and create that life of purpose and fulfillment for themselves. I'm so passionate about what I do, because in every client that I work with, like, there's a piece of my old self that I see and a piece of my new self that I also see. And so it's like we can be mirrors for each other, which is beautiful.
Yeah, it sounds like you're also, not only are you able to help these other people, I'm imagining that when you work with these clients, it's also like putting more of the puzzle pieces together of you. Would you say that is
Yeah.
true? Like, you're kind of learning more about yourself and getting more value out of what you're actually doing. And not to say that recruiting doesn't do that. I'm sure there's some fulfilling part of helping someone get stability in their life, right? By finding a new job. But this must be so much more fulfilling for you.
Oh, I feel like I'm buzzing every time I come off of a client conversation, because it's like I have to pinch myself and thank myself for taking the risk that I did to get here, because like these conversations that I'm having with people, about their life goals and their dreams and their fears, like I'm humbled by it because they chose me to help them through that process. And I think about the conversations that I used to have in the corporate world and the meetings that I sat in, and certainly there were times that were valuable. But for me, like getting to work with someone on creating the life that they want, like, holy cow, that is impactful. It's fulfilling. It's incredible.
What was, so November 2021, right? We're talking here. What was it like acquiring that first client?
I think I got up from my desk and like danced around my office. And it wasn't like coming from a place of, gosh, I can't believe this happened. It was more just like, wow, I'm really doing this.
Yeah.
Like a year ago, I never would have guessed that I'd be doing this. And look at me now. Like, look how much can change in a year when you align with who you really are and take inspired action that aligns with who you are. Like, it was overwhelming, emotional, exciting, like all at once.
Mm-hmm. Was there a little bit of fear in there?
A little bit. And that's where I get to keep working on myself, right? Like as a business owner, entrepreneur, as a coach, you are constantly up against yourself and your own thoughts about yourself and your business. So that's work that I get to do every morning when I start my day, is how do I want to think about my business? How do I want to think about myself? How do I want to think about my clients? And there are fear-based thoughts that come up from time to time. And I know that that's just my own ego wanting to protect me and keep me safe.
And you're human.
And I'm human. But my soul knows the way. My soul guided me here and got me this far, especially through the last few years. So if my soul can bring me here through all of that, like where else could it take me?
Right. Yeah. And sometimes that fear just, if you just sit with it for a second, it kind of melts away. I can, this is not a great comparison, but launching this podcast, I've been thinking about doing something like this for years. And really it took, I'm getting a pandemic graduate degree right now, just because I was quite bored. And part of it, I took an elective class called The Art of Podcasting. And I was like, oh, I'm scared of this class because now I'm going to actually have to do it. And like before I pressed that publish button, we didn't have to publish, but I was like, you know what, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it, which was going against that fear and that imposter syndrome. And so that's selfishly, that's why I asked, because I know like every time I put out a new episode, I have a little bit of that imposter syndrome. Like, am I supposed to be doing this? Yes, I'm supposed to be doing this. I feel it in my heart, but yet there's always that little like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Person. Yeah.
And to be clear, like fear is not a bad thing. I think we as humans want to assign bad or negative to the emotion and feeling of fear. We're somewhat like conditioned to think of it that way, but fear is just it's just neutral. We get to decide what we want to do with that fear and how we want it to affect us or not affect us. So something that I find really helpful for me when I have unserving thoughts come up is to write them down on paper, which can seem like a scary practice, I think, for some people, because they're like, I don't want to look at my thoughts. But when you write them on paper and you let them be there, you create distance from yourself, like of what your brain is offering to you versus what you actually feel about that thought. Like, is that a true thought or is it not true?
Right.
So that's something that I think can be really helpful when you're when you're listening to your ego and the fear voice is getting really loud.
Yeah. And again, it aligns with my guests, a lot of my guests coming on here and sharing their stories and the apprehension of what are people going to think, or, you know, and then after I did a live stream recently of a bonus episode in which I had previous guests come back and talk about the act of recording and the act of sharing their story in this way and having the conversations about what their story looks like. And a lot of us, including myself, because I did my own episode or I talked about that, is it's quite different sharing it and putting it out there. And that fear kind of just, you're just like, oh, this is just me. This is part of my story. And this is how how we evolve and grow from it. So I get that.
Totally. Totally. It's
Mm-hmm.
like once you voice it or write it down or whatever the mechanism is, you get to separate yourself from it and say, interesting, this is part of my journey. Cool.
So you have a lot of clients that are stuck that you're trying to get out there. Is there something that you see that makes us stuck? Like, what is a commonality that you're seeing as part of people being stuck?
Yeah, I would say a common theme that I'm seeing with clients right now is they feel stuck in their careers. And the thought and belief that they're fighting against is it's too late to make a change, or it's too late to pursue something they're passionate about, but they're not fulfilled by their current career. And so they're in this limbo of what do I do? So that's something I've been working through with a lot of clients is this notion of like, I'm too old to make a change right now.
Right. And then you're like, look at all these other people that have been really successful late in life by switching their careers. I'm sure that's not what you say, but I'm thinking that that's not the coaching advice that you give, but that's what I'm thinking. Like, duh, everyone else has done it. No, I get it. And I think, I mean, part of me just thinks that that is society's pressure on us to attach our worth and value to a career or a salary or a status that really doesn't serve us. It serves everyone else because we can say it out loud and this is who we are. I mean, just think about networking kind of events where so many people are like, what do you do? And is that really who I am?
Right. Oh, I love that you just said that, and I've heard you say that before, and it resonates because when I talk with people about how to, I like to say, unlock their purpose. That's the example that I give is, think of every time you're at a dinner party or at a networking event and someone introduces themselves to you, they say, what's your name and what do you do? And we immediately default to identifying ourselves with our jobs, with how much money we make, where we live, what our family life is like. And very rarely do we answer the question of like, who am I? And that's not to say that I would go to a networking event and say, hi, I'm Kelly Anderson and I'm a spiritual being having a human experience. Like, I'm not sure that I would fully answer it that way. But yeah, we tend to like create these identities.
I think Brene Brown would. She's an emotional being having a human experience.
You're right. I'm going to take a page out of her book and do that next time
Yeah,
I'm
you
in mixed
should.
company.
Yeah, I don't know if you've read or looked at the HBO special Atlas of the Heart. It's really eye-opening, and I think we're in a space now, 2022, coming out of the Great Awakening, the Great Reset, moments of terrible, terrible things that have happened to a lot of people, but also more quiet space. And coming out of that, something like what Brene Brown did in that piece, at least for me, is to validate emotions. I think as humans, I don't know how to word this, but society tells us which emotions are appropriate to share, especially as a male. I feel growing up, I was very conditioned that, you don't show vulnerability, don't cry, don't, be sad. These are the emotions that you're allowed to do. And I don't know if someone told me that or if that was just kind of what I gathered from the universe. But I realized once I went against that and once I started, I felt more like a person and less like a performing actor of some sort. So I appreciate things that are so mainstream now where we're okay talking about that, talking about mental health and just things like that.
Absolutely. It's such a freeing feeling when you really start unwinding and unlearning old conditioning, whether that came from, parents in childhood, your teachers growing up,
Yeah.
or just, societal conditioning, once you really identify, like, wait, is that really what I think? Or did I absorb someone else's thought and create truth out of it? So once you, again, like create distance from that, and then you really ask yourself, what do I believe? And in this case, like, do I really believe that it's not okay to be vulnerable? Like, you can really start becoming your true self when you start like disconnecting from all the things that really aren't you out there in the world.
Yeah, it's hard too because we've also grown up understanding that we need approval, or we are feeling like we need approval, whether that's through grades in school, whether that's through, hugs or love from external sources. And so that's hard for someone that may want to start showing their vulnerability, is that how are people going to perceive that? And that's kind of why I asked earlier about your big shift into kind of quitting corporate America and going to these retreats, and how the people around you were supporting that. Because I've even seen, I briefly mentioned that I quit a job that was just, it was so toxic. I couldn't be there anymore. I would go home and just go to bed because I didn't want to be awake, and probably like your hamster wheel that you were describing earlier. And I quit. I mean, I gave notice like a proper human, but I left and I didn't have a backup plan. And I will tell you, it was so interesting, the percentage of people that were more worried about my bank account than they were about the reasons why I chose to leave.
Right.
And like, do you think I would have left had I not planned those other pieces? Like right now, I need to do this. It was very interesting to me, and also kind of goes along with your shedding of particular friends, right? That, oh, we really don't align in our purposes.
That's why it's so important to do the work to not only discover who you are, but build the trust and confidence in yourself, so that when you hear the birds chirping in the background, like, again, that's never going to go away. Whether it's friends, family, society, like, there's always going to be someone with an opinion about you. That's why once you become so grounded in who you are and trust yourself, it doesn't it doesn't infest your mind and make you question yourself when you do hear those opinions. And I find it interesting that you said that it's like people were more concerned with your bank account versus your mental and emotional well-being. Fascinating.
They wanted to know how many days I was going to survive without a job. And I was like, this isn't really important right now, right? I mean, and also, like, me, so that I'm prepared enough. I'm not like just like willy-nilly doing crazy things. It was just very interesting to me, and it told me a lot about how people live their lives, and how that outside approval is very needed for people, and they're afraid to do those things. I don't know. It was fascinating to me. It was a nice, interesting human study.
It is. And it also speaks to the way that we as humans, and maybe even in American culture especially, are conditioned to rely on like external systems, that we're told that we need them to survive. And that's something that I've really been unwinding these last couple of years, is like, how do I step into sovereignty and true freedom and not rely on a corporate job and rely on XYZ system?
Right. Well, yeah, you said that like 5 years ago, you needed your benefits, you needed your stability, you needed your salary, you needed your status, you needed, all the things that came along with what we've been conditioned to understand that we need to survive. And it sounds like by burning everything down, you really found the things that you need to survive, which probably are not equal to what, there's not an equal sign between what you had and what you have now. It's a different kind of sign. An arrow?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's because I've placed value on different things than what I was initially told I had to place value on. It was a complete realignment of values.
Yeah. Do you think that the five year ago version of you could believe where you are now?
Not at all.
No.
I have so much love and compassion for her. She had no idea what was to come in those 5 years.
Yeah.
And like, I'm smiling big right now because it's just like, holy cow. Like, she had no idea what was to come, nor would that version of me ever have thought that I could have navigated all of those changes back to back to back. But it gives me such hope, I guess, that, all right, I've built evidence for myself that I can do hard things and not just make it through hard things, but thrive through hard things and, create fulfillment and happiness through hard things that, gosh, what's it going to look like in another 5 years?
Right. I think I guess this question has probably already been answered, but are you grateful that you had those experiences for those 30 plus years and the conditions that you were in and the external forces and all those pieces, and then what you went through 2019 and on? Are you grateful for those? You feel like they made you who you are now?
Absolutely. Those previous 30 something years are a part of my story and a part of the life lessons that I was meant to learn in this lifetime. And I see all of that connecting now. I mean, I can point to, situations and seasons of life long, long ago that prepared me for where I'm at now and that prepared me for 3 years ago. So it would be really hard for me to look back and be like, oh, I would change this, this, and this, because I'm such a firm believer that like everything is divinely orchestrated on purpose for your own individual learning journey. And yeah, I am grateful for that.
Yeah, and I think that helps maybe your clients too to realize that like maybe they don't understand that all the things they've done to this point can potentially bring them to where they really need to be. Because you said that they were kind of like, I'm too old to do this, or I'm too old to find a new passion, or they're I can't do this. And I think understanding that your journey has purpose. I mean, even in a case of mine, so having my mother die, then having a replacement mom, but with my grandmother, and then watching her die. Looking back, I would not change. Like if someone was like, if you could go back to 1989 and prevent your mom from going on the trip that she died on, would you? And at this point in my life at 41, I would not, right? Because that was the journey that was supposed to put all of us on, right? And all parts of my family and the people there. And so it's hard to say, right? It's hard to say that those traumas and those things that have happened to us served us in a positive way, because it sounds terrible. It sounds like a terrible thing to say, but I truly do believe, like what you just said, is that all the little pieces lead us to where we are today.
Totally. And that is such a game changing mindset shift once you get there, because that allows you to navigate anything that's coming for you in the present and in the future. And like, I'll give you a perfect example of that. I know that I'm entering another season of growth right now as we speak, because I'm doing a lot of shedding. I, just lost a family member last week. I have a best friend that I've known for 20 years who's moving away next month. And most importantly, my boyfriend, my soul aligned partner in this life, is away at Army basic training for the next 10 weeks. He just left and we will not have contact. And so I get to be on my own and sitting with all of those, I don't want to say losses, but in a way, losses over the next few months. And so, had I have not been through some of these other big life changes where I came to that realization that everything is divinely orchestrated, like I don't know what the lesson is for me out of this over the next few months, but I know there's something here for me. And so I'm practicing being open to what that is that's coming. And at the same time, allowing myself to feel all the things, right? Like there's been a lot of tears this last week.
I love feeling.
Right. And so I'm allowing that to happen while still holding on to the thought that there's a lot of growth here for me too.
Yeah, it's interesting to hear that, or you to put it to words, because those are a lot of things that I would venture to say that a majority of people are very scared of and very apprehensive, and they don't look at it in the case of like, what is this actually going to teach me? And like, how cool is it that I'm going to learn something new from this experience? And that's a shift that I think a lot of people don't have, which is that's it's awesome for you, actually.
Well, the beautiful thing is it's duality. You can feel both. Like I feel very fearful some days in this sort of like new normal that I'm going to be in for a few months. There's a lot of uncertainty and there's a lot of, gosh, what's on the other side of this? And I can simultaneously feel like I'm so excited for what's on the other side of this. I'm so excited when he comes back. Like, what's the next level of our relationship going to be like since we've had this time apart? Like, I'm choosing to embrace that, but also know like the fear and the other emotions are going to come up. And that's okay.
I still don't think a lot of people feel that way. And maybe the old version of you might not have had that duality. Do you think? No. It would have been like,
No.
what am I going to do? I need to fill all my time. He's going to be gone. I need to go hang out with all my friends, go on a trip, fill all the time.
Oh, I'd
and
be
now you're
freaking
like,
out.
I can just sit on the couch and think, and it's okay. Right. And I can be with myself. So I like to do this final question that nobody really has an answer to, but I always find it interesting of, if you could talk to the version of you that was going through that hamster wheel, that frustration of like, is this it? Is there anything that you could say to that version of you that would make this version of you feel even stronger?
I would tell that 2018 version of myself to trust exactly where you are in that moment of time. Trust the discomfort. Trust the not knowing. Trust the fear. And trust that what's on the other side is beautiful.
Yeah. I mean, how lucky are you that you have found the ability to become who you are? I don't know you, but I feel like I know you so much better now. Like I understand you, and I get that shift. I didn't know you before, but I feel like you're living the purpose, right? And you're really feeling true, and we're going to overuse the word authentic, right? You just feel like that's like your true purpose and who you are, and willing that a year from now version of Kelly could be different, and that could be cool too.
Yeah. And she will be different.
Yeah.
I do a lot of future self, higher self visualizations and meditations. And, it's not 100% clear who she is because I think there's got to be some element of surprise out there. But now that I've discovered.
And openness.
And openness, right. But now that I've discovered this inner work and what it looks like to really heal and grow, like I have faith in that process that will take me into who I need to be next to serve my family, my clients, my close friends, my community. I have full faith that like that future version of me, she knows exactly what she's doing, and she knows exactly what she's putting me through to get there.
Right. Yeah. And you're open to it. I think that's the best part. It's like, bring it on, like, let's go. Let's make these changes happen. I think a lot of people listening to the Life Shift podcast will resonate with that stuck feeling. And I love that your story has brought you not to I mean, you've changed your life and you've changed and you're living in your purpose. And for a lot of people, it's not going to be coaching others to do the same, right? A lot of people are just going to find whatever they really love to do, and they're going to do that. But I love that your journey was like, okay, you're going to fix yourself, and then you're going to help other people live their best lives. That's, I mean, how wonderful for you. It's like a double win.
It's humbling and exciting. Yep.
So thank you for being a part of the Life Shift podcast and trusting me to share your story on here. It's been a pleasure to get to know you a little bit more.
Oh, thank you so much, Matt. I so appreciate the invitation into your world today. This was such a fun and expansive conversation. Thank you so much.
No problem. And hopefully, maybe when we have a bonus episode, you can be part of it.
I'm in.
Awesome. All righty, my friends. Thank you for listening to the Life Shift podcast. We'll be back next week. I'm Matt Gilhooly, and this is The Life Shift. Candid conversations about the pivotal moments that change lives forever. Please subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. For more information about how you can support the Life Shift podcast, please visit www.thelifeshiftpodcast.com. See you next time.